If you think safety rules are a pain, try having an accident. Drive safely. A message from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
There's so much going on with the NNP, and we're just getting started. From candidate launches to contests, events, and breaking news, be in the know. Get notified first about big events and announcements. Plus, we're here to listen. We want to hear from you. Leave us a comment, tell us what's working and what's not. Like what we're doing? Let us know. The NNP is working for you. Interact with us on Facebook. Come on, Grenada, get connected. Like us on Facebook/NNP Grenada and keep moving.
It's coming, the new family of EC polymer notes.
What is different about these notes?
The feel.
Polymer notes are made from a thin plastic film which makes the notes feel smoother than the paper notes.
The orientation.
The notes have a portrait orientation. You will read the notes from top to bottom instead of left to right as you do with the paper notes.
Unique tactile feature.
The front of each note has raised bumps at the top left-hand corner. These bumps form shapes that are familiar to you.
Holographic foil strip.
This feature is on the $20, $50, and $100. When you tilt the notes, the images and colors in this section will change.
New image on the $50.
The back of the $50 bears the image of former governor of the ECCD, the late Honorable Sir K. Dwight Venner.
New signature.
All the notes bear the signature of the current governor, Timothy N.J. Antoine.
EC polymer notes. Cleaner, safer, stronger.
Grenada hosts training in anti-money laundering processes for stakeholders ahead of upcoming mutual evaluation review. Details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Wednesday, September 11th, I am Leslie Ann Johnson. Stakeholders in the public and private sectors are this week receiving training in anti-money laundering and countering terrorist financing processes in preparation for Grenada's mutual evaluation review next year. The 3-day training is intended to foster greater understanding of the technical issues associated with the mutual evaluation, as well as to develop a structure to adequately facilitate the on-site peer review. The evaluation itself, scheduled for June 2020, will determine Grenada's technical and legislative compliance and effectiveness with the FATF's 40 recommendations, which focus on anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Delivering remarks on day one of the training session on Wednesday, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance and National Security, Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell, said Grenada is committed to ensuring adherence to international standards to combat money laundering and terrorist financing.
Throughout the years, Grenada has made significant strides in ensuring that the legislative regime is robust, current, and in keeping with international standards, and serves adequately as a primary tool in the fight against these crimes.
The Prime Minister cited the passage of various pieces of legislation as also being indicative of government's commitment to anti-money laundering. He spoke too of the recent establishment of the operational component of the AML-CTF Commission, facilitating the execution of some functions such as inspections. Dr. Mitchell applauded the efforts of the lead agencies and stakeholders for their ongoing role in anti-money laundering initiatives and protecting the reputation of the country.
I thank you all on behalf of the government and people of Grenada for your valuable contribution to protecting the reputation of this country. the country's reputation is enhanced, your businesses are also enhanced. We say thank you also to the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force for the technical support provided over the years. We could not be here where we are today without your valuable support. We also continue to demonstrate our commitment to regional and international initiatives spearheaded by the CFATF. And we continuously honor our financial commitment by way of annual subvention to this organization.
The Prime Minister and Minister for National Security singled out the Royal Grenada Police Force for its strong adherence to laws, policies and procedures that protect the country against criminal elements. He also recognized the critical technical support provided by the CFATF over the years and gave assurances of Grenada's ongoing commitment to the agency. The AML-CTF pre-assessment training is organized by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, the CFATF, in collaboration with the Anti-Money Laundering and Combating Terrorist Financing Commission. The 3-day training is funded by the 11th European Development Fund. Chairman of the Anti-Money Laundering Commission, Attorney General Darshan Ramdani, says Grenada is ensuring that the legislative framework is in place to satisfy all requirements and commitments under the Financial Action Task Force. He was addressing a 3-day training in anti-money laundering processes for stakeholders at the National Stadium on Wednesday.
We are in the process. Mr. Peer has met with me several times. Well, we've had discussions several times, and he's met with me in relation to a number of amendments which are being considered in relation to the legislative framework that we have here in Grenada. And I understand some submissions are being prepared eventually that will be taken to Cabinet for approval for crucial amendments to be made so that we can satisfy our international obligations under the FATF.
One of the facilitators, Hector Salinas of the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force Secretariat, says the objective of the pre-assessment training is to demonstrate how the process will be executed in Grenada.
The objective of these evaluations is to try to, is about two things practically. It's about to diagnose and about improvement. So what do we mean by diagnosing, or what I mean by diagnosing? Well, the assessments or mutual evaluations are aimed at highlighting risks. That is, what are the areas where you have most problems? What are your threats? What are your vulnerabilities? And which are the greatest ones? The evaluation is going to identify those areas in which you have greater risks. Besides, the evaluation as a diagnose is going to tell you what are the areas in which you have the biggest problems. So we can make policymakers recommendations about how to improve, how to strengthen your system.
This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Prepare for hurricane. Prepare for hurricane. Make sure you have your radio and your batteries too. Waterproof flashlight candles will do. Tin stuff, garbage bag, first aid kit. Come on people, make sure you have it. Clean water in a container and a hurricane plan. Hear me no man.
Hurricane damage is beyond your control. Surviving the aftermath is up to you. Have a hurricane plan. It can save your life and your family too.
Prepare for hurricane. Your hair, prepare for hurricane.
Continuing the news, the contractor hired to remodel the Carriacou building on Yonge Street to house the civil and criminal courts says they are pressing ahead to ensure the work is completed in time for the September 21st deadline. Mr. Sheldon Frederick, project manager of Sunrise Construction, says work on the first floor is about 95% complete.
About 90% of the painting finish. We have to do some installation of the doors and stuff. So basically in my view, we are about 95% complete on the first floor, basically. So yeah, that's about it. And after the initial process is finished in terms of the structural part of it, then we have to just install some of the furnitures and some of the things just to make it complete.
The first floor will house the 2 civil courts, judges' chambers, and a public waiting area. The upper floor will house 2 criminal courts, judges' chambers, and jury rooms. The building will also have a witness room and holding cells. Legal Affairs Minister, the Honourable Kendra Maturin-Stewart, is happy with the pace of work. She provided an update on the progress of work during Tuesday's post-cabinet briefing.
During that site visit, some changes were proposed, some amendments were made to the initial layout and designs. Yesterday, again, along with myself and Minister Garwe, we met and we visited the site again and to get a further update as to where we are, bearing in mind the timeline that we are in fact working with. I must say that I am indeed very pleased and happy with the pace of progress that has been taking place at that particular space. One of the floor is almost complete, and I'm advised that about 80 to 85% of the work needed to be done there is almost complete. As indicated, once there is a change to the stated timeline that we would have provided to you previously, that will be so communicated.
As part of the Ministry of Trade's mandate, fisherfolk and boat owners from parishes island-wide are benefiting from the Fishermen and Boat Owners Workshop. The workshop, which began on Wednesday, targeted those from St. George's, embracing areas like small business development, management skills, entrepreneurship, and financial record keeping. The workshop was organized by the Ministry of Trade, Cooperatives and CARICOM Affairs, partnering with the Grenada Investment Development Corporation, GIDC. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Mr. Aaron Francois, says participants will be taught best practices that should be applied to effectively run a small business in the fisheries sector.
The fisheries sector, as I said, is well known. You know, I see, where I sit from my office, I see the many trawlers and so on out on the canals there. And I know a lot of those guys and them are making money. This workshop today is to help you, yes, to get some of the skills to help you to better manage your business, to better manage your resources, to make better decisions concerning expenditure, income, if you want to pursue loans, how to make good decisions when it comes to that, how to run your business profitably.
Mr. Orlando Harvey, Marine Protected Area Biologist, says while the fishing industry is profitable, there have been some obstacles to greater profitability.
The fisheries sector continues to be one of the most lucrative industries and subsectors here in Grenada. However, the general lack of management of those resources that have been generated from the sector has prevented the sector from shining in the way it should have. And this is primarily because a lot of the boat owners and fishers don't look at what they do, their fishing operations, as a full-fledged business in the way it actually is. So the time has come for us now to change those perceptions in the mind of the fishing community and the general public, and try to make the fishing industry and fishing, the general fishing, into the businesses that they actually are.
And that's the National Report. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson.
Grenada's economy is heading for its 7th year of consistent growth, averaging over 5%. Unemployment was reduced by 20%, while debt to GDP ratio was reduced from 108% to 63.5%. NNP committed to the economic and social development of our people. NNP delivering on the promise.
If you want to stay married, divorce speed. Never drink and drive. After whiskey, driving is risky. A message from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force.
It's coming, the new family of EC polymer notes.
What is different about these notes?
The feel.
Polymer notes are made from a thin plastic film which makes the notes feel smoother than the paper notes.
The orientation.
The notes have a portrait orientation. You will read the notes from top to bottom instead of left to right as you do with the paper notes.
unique tactile feature.
The front of each note has raised bumps at the top left-hand corner. These bumps form shapes that are familiar to you.
Holographic foil strip.
This feature is on the $20, $50, and $100. When you tilt the notes, the images and colors in this section will change.
New image on the $50.
The back of the $50 bears the image of former governor of the ECCB, the late Honorable Sir K. Dwight Venner.
New signature.
All the notes bear the signature of the current governor, Timothy N.J. Antwine.
EC Polymer Notes. Cleaner, safer, stronger.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
Hope rides on the rays of the sun here. So too does the resilience of the people. But in the battle against climate change, will hope and resilience be enough when the lives of those who contribute the least feel the brunt of its effects?
For us here in the Caribbean, climate change and its devastating impacts are our new normal.
Hope is still the strongest currency in these parts. But a devaluation of life can come if the world sells the people short. With the realities of modern times, forever no longer has the same currency it had a generation ago.
Rolling on the way through my journey. Got a triple OG sitting right beside me. This old man, he played fall. He playing knick-knack on my door. Raises a white noise, light up the world. Here we go, and I follow the sun, 'cause it's bright on the other side of my window.
In Grenada, like in many places in the Caribbean, there are continuing concerns about rising temperatures and the increasing frequency of storms.
In growing up as a young girl on the Carriacou, the changes, I always tell them the major change started with Hurricane Janet, September. September is a very terrible month for Grenada with hurricanes. Price of progress is always very high. And to me, the whole environmental problem in the Caribbean and in particular in Grenada come with the price of progress.
The country was devastated, almost complete devastation in some villages. First of all, every village in Dominica, every street, every cranny, every person in Dominica was impacted by the hurricane.
I know myself from since this is why growing up, coming here, twice to come and enjoy yourself at the beach, and bathe and eat and drink and enjoy yourself and have fun. The river never used to meet much with the sea, but I know the water get rough. The climate got changing.
People here have created their own way of life, overcoming great challenges over the centuries. They are at one with nature, and nature is at one with them.
There are farmers who have irrigation systems. There are farmers who are close to rivers, but there are also farmers who depend solely on rainwater harvesting to grow their plants. And
I can tell you over the last year or so, and a lot of farmers have not been able to reach their targets in terms of production.
They followed the sun and the moon and the stars to maintain their livelihoods. Their culture has evolved dependent on the environment, their lives intertwined with its well-being.
We have no choice as a region but to pursue climate-smart development.
Building the region's resilience to climate change, natural hazards, and environmental changes is not only a necessary and urgent development imperative, but is also a fundamental requirement to ensure our basic survival as a people.
The problem with climate change is it's getting warmer faster in the temperate regions, and so earlier in the year, like February, March, when the birds are still here, they don't know they have to go home yet, but all the things that should be happening when they arrive are happening earlier. So their nesting sites are becoming available, their food sources, especially insects, are blooming. So by the time the birds get back to where they have to go, there's no food for them.
Follow the sun, follow the sun.
Water fuels life here. Above as below, without adaptation, much is at stake. Maybe the lives here can be the hope and the light the world needs to make a change before it's too late.
These impacts are reversing economic growth, exacerbating poverty, and undermining the future prosperity of Caribbean countries.
This war was not started on their terms, but one through which they are determined to fight together.
But we can't do this alone. This is why we're calling for greater focus, support, and action from the international community to get us ahead of this climate crisis.
Grenada's National Sustainable Development Plan 2035 seeks to address climate adaptation and vulnerability for sustainable development.
Being on the front line in the war against climate change, Caribbean countries are pushed into action and are finding ways to overcome the challenges.
We're facing a Hurricane Dorian, one that we've never seen in the history of Bahamas. I just want to say that as a physician, I've been trained to withstand many things, but never anything like this.
We preserve, we protect, and we promote. Adaptation done right safeguards our economies and builds a better future for us all. The choice is clear. Delay and pay, or plan and prosper.
Hope and resilience may be enough after all. Governments, communities, and businesses are working together in this changing reality to adapt and build a stronger Caribbean as the world's first climate-smart zone.
Investing in adaptation measures is not a cost, it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity to realign our lifestyles and our economies to respect that delicate balance that maintains life on Earth.
Accelerating adaptation would enable us to get ahead of the climate crisis and stay there.
In Grenada, they're embarking on a bold plan to build the first climate-smart city in the Caribbean. If carbon emissions are not capped, if the sea levels and temperatures continue to rise, if we do not act now, all hope will be lost.
The time for action is now. The choice is clear.
The choice is clear. Adapt our world.
With fresh investments in people and infrastructure, with development tied to the sustenance of the environment, with strengthening policies and greater awareness, we can accelerate adaptation and save our world. So join us as we adapt our world.
The choice is clear. Adapt our world.
Adapt our world!
Government pension. What are the facts? Are all public workers entitled to pension? Are public workers owed gratuity? Here are the facts. Fact 1. The Pension Disqualification Act of 1983 was validated on April 21, 1985 by the democratically elected government, led by former Prime Minister Herbert A. Blaise. This means that public workers employed after February 22, 1985 are not legally entitled to a pension from the government of Grenada. Fact 2. The judgment in the Hermelin Armstrong case does not create legal precedence for the reinstatement of pension to public workers employed after February 22, 1985. The judgment created a legal precedence only for those workers who joined the public service in a pensionable post between April 4, 1983 and February 22, 1985. There were 56 such workers. The government restored pension to those 56 workers in 2018 at a cost of $7.7 million. Fact 3. All officers employed in a pensionable post who joined the service after February 22, 1985 are not legally entitled to a pension from government. They are only entitled to a pension from NIS once they meet the necessary requirements as per the NIS Act. Fact 4. The Cabinet's decision in 2016 to reform pension is rooted in moral and social justice principles, and it is not a legal obligation. Therefore, any agreement on pension is a win for public workers. Fact 5. The MOU signed between government, the unions, and staff associations in February and March 2018 stated that the pension regime which will be implemented must be affordable and sustainable. Fact 6. The proposed pension regime for public workers employed between February 22, 1985 and December 31, 2018, as stated in the MOU, is a non-contributory pension plan. Therefore, no deductions will be taken from workers' salaries to finance their pension from government. Pensioners also benefit from any future negotiated salary increases. Fact 7. It was agreed by all parties that a worker's annual pension would be a minimum of 70% of their final salary to be paid jointly by the NIS and the government of Grenada. Fact 8. Government is not obligated to offer an advanced pension payment, commonly called a gratuity. Government has proposed to make an advanced pension payment of 2% of full pension, an amount it can practically and reasonably afford, given its current and projected revenue stream. It should be noted that an advanced pension payment is a non-interest-bearing loan that the government grants to the pensioner, which must then be repaid in equal monthly installments in the form of a reduced monthly pension over 12 and a half years. Fact 9. Under the proposed 2% advanced pension payment or gratuity, retirees will be entitled to a higher monthly pension than if a larger advanced payment was given. Fact 10. If the government accommodates any higher rate of gratuity, the implications would be severe for the country, as this will translate to higher taxes such as VAT, income tax and property tax, higher import duties, the possibility that hundreds of millions of dollars in grants would be lost, lower expenditure in critical areas such as healthcare, agriculture, roadworks and youth development, retrenchment of workers. These are the facts. Government is committed to an amicable resolution to the pension matter for the good of all Grenadians.
It's coming, the new family of EC polymer notes.
What is different about these notes?
The feel.
Polymer notes are made from a thin plastic film which makes the notes feel smoother than the paper notes.
The orientation.
The notes have a portrait orientation. You will read the notes from top to bottom instead of left to right as you do with the paper notes.
Unique tactile feature.
The front of each note has raised bumps at the top left-hand corner. These bumps form shapes that are familiar to you.
Holographic foil strip.
This feature is on the $20, $50, and $100. When you tilt the notes, the images and colors in this section will change.
New image on the $50.
The back of the $50 bears the image of former governor of the ECCB, the late Honorable Sir K. Dwight Venner.
New signature.
All the notes bear the signature of the current governor, Timothy N.J. Antoine.
EC polymer notes. Cleaner, safer, stronger.
What kind of thing is when you tell him he feels you're like he getting, always giving you some excuse, but he still wants you to believe and know it. He's stuck in it, he wants you rubbing. When he's a husband and a wife, think you'll put your mouth. That is a genie stuck in us. You know he, but if you rub him, then you can get him out. You have a genie stuck in us, keeping you undercover. This genie is, rub it and you go. That genie is, that genie go. You're not getting, that genie won't, that genie is. Oh, so let me break it down for them. Look, if she says she don't take her hand, you becoming a tool. That genie turn you a fool. If he say he have somebody, but he still want to touch your, tell him not as long as he have the next one, girl. That is a genie stuck in a bottle of her. You know she have another, but if you rub she right, then you can get she up. But you have a genie stuck in a bottle, keeping you undercover. This genie is magic.
Good morning to Grenada, Carriacou, and Pity Martinique once again. It's time for Hard Talk. My name is Sheldon Scott.
Good morning, and I'm Shelly Ann Duncan. How are you, Grenada?
Yes, indeed. It is a beautiful sunshiny Thursday morning on the Isle of Spice. And Devon is not in with us this morning. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. I see somebody sent a message there for me. All right. Let me just think there. Right. Nice. Right. I'll think on something else for now. Yeah. Beautiful sunshiny Thursday morning on the Isle of Spice.
It is beautiful and hot. And hot.
I'm getting some temperatures in the 40-something degrees Celsius range. I'm getting some serious temperature readings.
Yeah, it's been a hot few days.
But not only that, and let's say a special good morning to the folks out there, the National Water and Sewage Authority, the management team, the staff, the cashiers, and in particular, the teams that go about, Vaughn and the guys that go about fixing all the leaks and so.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the photos. I've seen some photos of the dams.
I have.
And the dams are looking in some instances like the worst part of dry season.
It does.
Yeah, especially the one that's servicing St. Paul's and certain parts of St. David and so on. Those dam levels are usually they are overflowing. Naz, I wonder, we'll get the photos later and show people, man.
Right.
Yeah, what's going on with some of the dams and so on. So the water levels are extremely low. We've not been getting the level of rainfall that we need to replenish after a very hot dry season, usually during the months of June, July, August. August, you have in Trinidad what they call Petit Carême. You have a short dry season, which is usually when we have the carnival.
Mm-hmm.
A short dry season during August, and then September, October, you get a lot of rain.
We get rain, yeah.
We've not been getting that. It means, therefore, that we have to go back into dry season mode in certain areas.
Yes.
Listening to some of the radio programs, I have been hearing people calling from all parts of the island saying that no water, 3 days, no water, because they have to go back into valve regulation.
Yeah. And I think it's important for us to pay attention to NOASA's releases, because they do send releases as to when they will be regulating and in which areas they're going to be regulating. And it's important for us to pay attention, and maybe NOASA can furnish us with that information in a timely manner so that we are able to, of course, share that information with you so that you know when they're going to regulate in your area. And we have to understand that it's absolutely necessary. It's no fault of NOASA's, no fault of anybody's, really. It's just, Mother Nature, climate change doing its thing. So we kind of just have to adjust to suit. So maybe NOASA can provide us with that information. I did see they would have sent out a release saying that they would have to go back into valve regulation mode. And when you take a look at those pictures of those dams and so on, especially that one that services Mardi Gras and those surrounding areas, it's very disturbing to think that if we don't get rain in the next couple of weeks, what's going to happen in that area?
We're hoping that some weather system passes through.
Yes.
Not to dump too much. Yeah, we want it full up, but we want it clogged up.
Yeah, we want just enough.
Yeah, NOASA has a problem when they have too much rain and when they have too little rain. When they have too much, it breaks the lines coming down from the mountains. It clogs up the system. It silts it. They end up with a set of mud, and so that they have to go and dig out
exactly,
and so on. And they also end up in a problem when they have the situation with too little rain.
Yeah.
So now that is the problem that they're having.
And I mean, we must do our part, of course, to ensure that NOASA's job is a little easy, because if their job is easy, it means that our water supply would be consistent, clean, and we want that. So it's important for us to try and abide by the regulations that NOASA puts in place. I know we say that we're paying for a service, but of course you know that you pay for the service based on what you use. So if you have no water in the pipe, you're not paying for anything really, right? So you kind of want to...
you're paying for the meter still.
You pay for the meter, yes, but you're not really paying for usage or consumption, because there is no consumption. So you want to ensure that we get water frequently. So we want to be able to just abide by what they say. It's only for a short period. We pray that the rains come soon.
Well, we hope it's for a short period.
We hope, yes.
With the kind of temperatures, you already have low rainfall, and then you have these kind of temperatures, which is going to evaporate what's there.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful. We have to go back into storage mode. When we do have water, we store. And we also have to go back into the be careful how we use mode.
Yes.
Because if we just use out everything, it's seawater alone we have,
Yes, it's true.
You have to go and bathe in the sea.
In the sea. And NOASA has provided guidelines to help us to manage what we have properly in terms of taking shorter showers and ensuring that we, conserve, we don't waste and these kind of things. So maybe I have a system at home with my children in terms of the amount of clothes I have to wash. If I give my kids a chance, I will be washing loads and loads of clothes every weekend, because they love changing clothes. But we have to try to minimize on, I ain't saying wear the same dirty clothes every day.
No, we ain't saying that. We ain't saying that.
But minimize on the amount of clothing that we have to wash, you know? If you have a nightgown that you could recycle 3 times a week, or maybe we have to revert to that mode. It's just a measure to ensure that we are not using more water than we really can afford to use at this point in time. You know, so we definitely do have to be careful and go on NOASA's website. I'm sure that the information is posted there. They usually send programs and press releases to let us know what's really going on as it relates to the water and the valve regulation and so on.
Yeah.
And of course, we know when water levels are low, then it does pose another problem. We have things like gastro and these kind of things. So you want to ensure that the water that you are storing, that you boil it, that you reboil it, because you know you don't want to store water and then afterwards you find out you're sick from it.
The thing bad.
Yeah, so you want
It's over 10 feet below what it should be at right
Yeah.
now. It's over 10 feet below what it should be right now. So it over below.
Over below.
Yeah.
And we want to be mindful. It's really nobody's fault, right? Or if we put in blame, we have to blame everybody because it's climate change. And climate change,
But
we
that
have
we go do,
all contributed to climate change.
You know, we go blame climate change.
Yeah, so we have to try our best to just work with NOASA to see how best we can conserve as much as possible to keep us for as long as possible. So Sheldon, what's in the air? What's going on? What do we talk about today? I have so many things on my
Some
chest.
people want me to talk about something, but I ain't talking about that yet.
I have so many things on my chest,
I have
Sheldon.
something I will talk about, but I could talk about that tomorrow. Me ain't talking about that today.
Yes, talk about it when I'm not here. I don't want to be a part of
talk
that
about it
conversation.
tomorrow. But the National Sustainable Development Committee, they're having a meeting today. And that's going to be at the St. John Anglican School taking place today. Senator Judd Cadet.
Yes.
He will be the facilitator today. So that's going to be taking place today from 7 p.m. at the St. John Anglican School. So that's in the northern part of St. John.
Right.
And then next week, Monday, they're going to be moving to the southern part of St. John at the Grand Roy Government School. Same time, 7 p.m. And Mr. Carlton Frederick. Everybody in St. John know Mr. Frederick.
Yes.
So Mr. Carlton Frederick, he'll be the facilitator. So they're going to be discussing the way forward for Grenada. How do we achieve certain things by the year 2035?
Wonderful. And it's important for us to all go and listen to what they have to say. And of course, if possible, make our contributions to a better Grenada, a better, more developed Grenada. But there are a lot of consultations happening, and I know generally we get a lot of licks on this program when we announce things that are not that are not party oriented. And I say that because at some point there must be a differentiation, a separation between party and government. But however, there must be no separation when it comes to information, right? Once the information is factual and so on, we must be able to provide it. And I know that there are a lot of consultations happening on the government's end, trying to inform people of what's happening within the constituencies, within the economy, with the NIS, with the NHI. And I know of some upcoming consultations. I just need to verify with some dates, of course, to be able to provide you with that information. But once I get it, I'll let you know. And it's an encouragement for everybody, regardless of what political affiliation you have, to go to these consultations, to make your contributions, to listen to what is being said, to get some facts. And we encourage people to go, and then you hear, me, I ain't going to NP thing. It's sad though, eh?
I think a lot of persons, because see, there is this move by certain individuals to give the impression that once something is from government and a particular party is in government, that means that it is the party. That's not the case.
Of course not.
That's not the case. Government is government, party is a party.
Government is government and party to party. And I'm tired of saying government is not 15 representatives, and I will say it until people actually get what it means. It's not 15 representatives. Government is not Minister Emlyn Pear and Minister Pamela Moses. And, you know, that's not government. Government is the body. It is a system that governs the country, and that system encompasses permanent secretaries and executive secretaries, and it encompasses so many people. And all of these people people have a right to their own political affiliation, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in support of the current administration.
Here's
And
what
in
political party they support.
exactly,
None of my
and in most cases, it isn't in support of the current administration. But you would find them doing their service to the country because that is why they have been employed. They have not been employed to facilitate the 15 representatives or the cabinet ministers. They've been employed to facilitate the needs of the country, of the public, the general public of Grenada. So they are fulfilling their duty. So when you hear people saying, oh, the government, it means that you are not only coming down on the 15 representatives, it means that you are coming down on the body of people that have been placed to assist with the governing of the country, you know, and that is in most cases NDC, NNP, GULP, the STAR, whoever else it may be that has political affiliation.
Hey, careful with the star. Careful with the star. Right.
Whatever their political affiliation may be, it doesn't mean that it is in support of the current administration, but their duty is to serve the country, and that is what they are doing. So when I hear people go on and on about the government is not doing their job, hey, it's not just the NNP that's there, you know, it's everybody that's there. It is a mixture. So when we say that the government isn't doing their job, it means that we are not doing our job. The system that is being placed there to govern the country is not doing its job, and that's everybody. That's not just the NNP. So we definitely have to be mindful of that. So there will be a few consultations, and it's of course encouraged that everybody attend. Go out there and hear what's going on so that you can have informed, logical conversations about these things. Sometimes you go around, Sheldon, in the shops, and I know you visit a few bars and so on and take a few drinks every now and again, to not just because you want to drink, but you want to hear what's going on. You want to hear the conversation.
Trying to tell them people to find me.
I mean, I do it too.
I'll be in Snug Corner later.
I do it too. I go, to the shop and have a beer with the guys simply because I want to hear what they're talking about. I want to hear what they have to say. And if I can change a mind or provide some information or, give some facts, then I feel like I've done my civic duty,
That's Lyman Tongue. But it's Lyman Tongue because I've always Lyman Tongue.
Yeah.
Lyman Tongue since the 1990s. I've always Lyman Tongue.
Yeah.
Lyman Tongue over 20-something years now. That's what it's Lyme.
Yeah.
So, but it's a nice way to interact with people and
It
get
is.
information and so on. Yeah. But while we speak about all these things here in Grenada, we still have to remember our Bahamian brothers and sisters.
Of course.
Those on the Abaco Islands and Grand Bahama who are still, well, it's gotten to the stage now. And the last figure I heard quoted, 2,500.
Yes, that's what I heard also.
People who are unaccounted
Missing,
for.
yeah, unaccounted for.
2,500 is no little bit. 50 is no 20, 10, 1 is no little bit.
Mhm.
But for 2,500, I pray for them.
Yeah.
And I do know that we do have a team on standby here in Grenada. Once they get the all clear, they can head to the Bahamas if they do see the need for the team. I know that Trinidad have sent over their military. Barbados, I believe, has sent a contingent. Jamaica has sent a contingent as well with the support of the Canadian Air Force.
Mhm.
They've brought across the Jamaican contingent. So there are various people going across there. No, not going to be soldiers, but going for search and rescue and that sort of thing. For instance, in the Trinidadian and Jamaican contingents. So various members of their Coast Guards
Yeah.
who went there, the Air Guard and their Coast Guard. So they will be carrying out roles assisting with search and rescue. There are some communities that were cut off that they haven't heard from, that they're going to try and get to and get some people out of and whatever. But folks, if you can help, still the account number 121004900. That's 121004900. That's the account that's been activated by NADMA, so we could assist, because what I really need is money.
Yeah, every time I think and I hear about the people in the Bahamas, it gets me all emotional. I'm a very emotional person, so it doesn't take much for me to empathize, to empathize with these people. But it's sad, and when you think about the amount of lives that's been lost, children and parents and families displaced,
whole families missing.
It's really very, very sad. And I think it's important for us as Grenadians to do our duty, because we were in a similar situation not too long ago, You know, it felt like it was just the other day, not too long ago. And we can empathize with them. We can feel what they feel, to be displaced and not know where to go or where to turn. And, you know, emotions are flaring and you hear all different sorts of stories coming out of the Bahamas. But regardless of the stories, we still have to understand that they are in need and they are suffering. And it's just very, very sad. I know people are complaining about the bank account and why can't we just send aid. And I think we've explained that sufficiently. So there's really no need.
Folks, sometimes we have to be reasonable.
Yeah.
Not because every single day when you're heading to town, you pass on Lucas Street from St. Paul's, you pass on Lucas Street to get to town, means that every single day of your life, you'll have to be able to pass on Lucas Street to get to town. One day, Lucas Street might be blocked. One day, you might have to go down the lane, or you might have to pass River Road. You might even have to pass through the ocean to get to town. There might be a day that you have to go a different direction. And as it is right now, understand that the Bahamian Islands are up close to Florida.
Yeah.
They nearly end up part of the United States. They're just across the water from the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it is difficult to ship a set of foodstuff and clothes from Grenada up north to the Bahamas. It is difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah? It is better to give the amount of money it's going to cost to ship that up there. It was better to just send money and so on to them and assist them up there. So while we understand the good intent of our brothers and sisters here in Grenada, we understand their good intent and them wanting to help and knowing that everybody helped us in our time of need. The way to help, we have to maximize on the proper way to help. And with 2,500 people missing, the best way to help right now is cash. So account number, go into Cooperative Bank, 121-004900. So 121-004900.
I think one of the reservations that people may have, and probably in a different situation I may have the same reservation, is that I want to be able to walk into a supermarket when I'm making my groceries and pick up a few things that I can donate to the Bahamas. So maybe what some of the supermarkets may need to do is to be a collection point or a muster point where they can collect monies from persons who come and shop and then donate that to the bank as well, or put it in the bank as well so it could be donated. So that's maybe something that they can consider, because I think that's one of the reservations people have of going to stand in the line in the bank to make the donation and so on.
Let me ask a question. What do you think of what's making the round on the news right now of the American government? And we say good morning to Stan, who has joined us. It's Thursday, so we're going into National Health Insurance shortly.
Yeah.
But Stan spent time in the Bahamas, so he know what the place look like. And flat, right?
Yeah,
very flat.
Very flat.
So what do you say, though, about the present stance of the U.S. administration that they will not allow anyone without a visa coming out to the Bahamas to enter into the U.S.?
I personally, and this is just my opinion, so nobody bash me for it because it's my opinion, I believe that it is a wrong move, and I'll tell you why. These people really need help. They need all of the support they can get. This is not an issue where half of the island has been devastated and people can find shelter in shelters. There still are no shelters. There's no help. There are dead bodies floating around the place, covered under debris and so on. It's not only just a natural disaster, but it's also a health hazard for the people remaining on the island. And I believe that any support that anywhere in the world can give, that they should give. Maybe instead of saying that they should not enter, they should have revisited the method that they're using. Maybe they should have said, okay, well, if we're allowing them to come into the U.S., then we have a muster point for them. We're going to keep them here, here, and here. These are the only places that you can go. And these sorts of things, as opposed to restricting access to the U.S. at all.
But I'll say this, and a lot of people could be upset with me on this one. Technically, I understand the U.S. position. And it's not that I like Donald Trump. It's not that I like what he's doing, but technically. And you see, that's the thing. That's the same thing we were speaking about before, of people just taking things off of social media and going on emotion and basing something on without having all the facts in relation to it.
Right.
Now, we've heard what Donald Trump and his administration have said about Haitians before, and Haitians entering into the U.S. and so. And there are a significant number of Haitians on the Bahamian Islands.
So I've heard.
And what they've basically done is say this: if you don't have a visa, which is the situation now, which is always the situation, if you do not have a visa, you are not allowed to enter the United States. And they've specifically done that because what was taking place is a lot of people who are not Bahamians,
right,
Haitians, without visas, etc., were going on those boats to go into the United States. So they recognized what was happening, and they decided, look, if you don't have a visa, you can't enter. If you're a Haitian with a visa, no problem. But if you do not have a visa, you can't enter because unbeknownst to most people reading and looking at this online, it's not just a situation of Bahamians, but there were literally hundreds of Haitians using that opportunity to slip through into the United States.
Right. So it was an issue where Peter paid for Paul.
Yeah, but
kind of thing.
The United States has a responsibility
Yes,
to protect its borders.
their people as well.
And you can't be upset with them for protecting their borders. It's their country. If they decide they don't want somebody going into it, I mean, you apply for a visa right now, you pay a visa application fee, and it's still ensure you get a visa.
But we could say something similarly to the situation that's happening in Venezuela and Trinidad. Trinidad has a responsibility to protect their people. So if they see that it is problematic to allow an influx of Venezuelans to come into Trinidad, then it is their responsibility to their people to ensure that that does not happen. Same thing with Grenada. You know, if we believe that we are not economically stable enough to accept Venezuelans, and it is the duty of the government to ensure that their people are protected, because even though these places are ravaged and these places are destroyed and these places are suffering, you still have to consider your people first and the best alternative for your people. You know, it's a sad situation. It's terrible. It's probably a hard decision to make, but at the same time, your people do come first.
Sometimes some people would, just because it's Donald Trump, anything he do, he wrong.
Yeah.
Anything that happen, he wrong. Anything that he do, he wrong. And as again, it's not that I like Donald Trump or anything like that. It's just that sometimes you have to look at things from a balanced perspective.
Yeah.
And he has a responsibility as the president of the United States to protect the people of the United States.
True.
It's not just that he must just open the door and just let everybody in. And remember, there are specific islands. Again, Stan, you've been there. So it's specific islands that have been damaged. Some of the other islands operating as normal.
As normal.
And he has said that they are providing support to transport people from the affected islands to those that are not affected and then give them support there.
Yeah.
So,
you see, that's why it's good to have these kinds of dialogue, because it brings out the different sides of what an issue can be and what an issue is, you know. So that's why it's important to have these kind of dialogue. But let me say good morning to Stan. Stan,
Stan ready.
Good morning.
Ready,
you know,
Stan.
I get carried away sometimes in conversation. So I know you're here again to help us understand the NHI and the different aspects of it. And I always enjoy listening and having these conversations with you, because it gives me, of course, a better idea and a better understanding of what the National Health Insurance is all about. So tell me, what are we talking about this morning? We've had so many aspects of it. We've broken it down and sifted through it and tied it up so that every and anybody can understand. What's a topic for discussion this morning? What part of the NHI do you want to highlight for us?
Well, last time I was here,
Stan, one thing, let's get the mic a little closer to you because I'm not picking you up. Yeah, good.
It's better now?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah. Last time I was here, I said to Sheldon that we need to talk a bit about health system strengthening, because NHI is a package that's going to be delivered based on the infrastructure we have on the ground in Grenada. And we have to ensure that that infrastructure or the systems to accept the rollout is in place. So health system strengthening is not necessarily NHI, but it is basically looking at your facilities on ground to deliver the product. So this morning we would be talking a bit about that. But I think it's important to recognize that Grenada is not the only country in the world that's moving towards a system of providing healthcare to its citizens. And Grenada signed on to the what I think everybody know as the Millennium Development Goal. And one of those goals is to ensure that there is health for all. So
we're looking at the strengthening of the health
system
system
that
exists in Grenada, right?
Right, yeah.
First of all, before we get to strengthening the health system, what are some of the areas within the health system that have been identified as needing strengthening?
Well, there are two critical areas. That is the physical plant and the human resource. These are the two critical areas that needs to be addressed, because it's through those two avenues healthcare will be delivered.
So when you're speaking about, speaking of my kid, when you're speaking about the human resource aspect, we're speaking about more nurses, more doctors.
Yes. Well, it's
so
not
is
just
there a matrix
more.
that's put in place that says you need X amount of nurses per patient, or X amount of patients per nurse,
the WHO,
and all of these things?
The WHO and PAHO, they have identified the correct mix as to the minimum mix. And the last time I checked, I think in Grenada we are well within that mix. The problem that we're having is the exodus of some of the nurses, for example. We have a history of training doctors, and they necessarily don't stay in the system. Then we have the issue of we have a number of GPs, general practitioners, but not sufficient specialists. So certain aspects of care that should be delivered on island cannot be delivered because there are no specialists on. So the human resource element is basically looking at what is the package that you want to deliver, and do you have the resources in terms of manpower to deliver those resources? And then do you have the infrastructure through which those services would be delivered? So it's a combination of ensuring that you have the manpower and the facility to deliver that care. Yeah.
So since we're speaking about one aspect of it, and I think this is one that most Grenadians know of, seen the exodus of nurses and so on from our island. It's a traditional thing. We've been seeing that. It's not just that you've been seeing it within the last 5 or 10 years. It's a traditional thing that we've been seeing nurses leaving and heading to greener pastures. Especially, and some of them they've received specialist training. So then you have somebody, for instance, who might be dealing specifically with oncology, and then they're out. Somebody that's dealing with dialysis, and then they're out of the island. You have to find somebody else to train again. It keeps dialing us back to the beginning of the system. How do we address that?
Well, the thing is that when you have identified the areas that you need to strengthen, the question of remuneration would come in, because, as you said, the nurses go to what they call greener pastures. Some of them, it's not just for the money. They're not working. They feel like the environment they're working in is not conducive. There is very little job satisfaction. So there are various reasons they leave, but there are nurses that don't go because they, as far as they're concerned, they are providing a service to the country. And you will find that in almost every field, accountants, teachers, everybody decide, well, look, I'm going to look for the dollar. But when health system strengthening is properly addressed, there most likely would be job satisfaction. And I say to people all the time that you can work for $5,000 in St. Vincent and be unhappy. And you can work for $3,000 in Grenada and be happy. So at the end of the day, it's not only the dollars, but job satisfaction. If you like what you do and you're comfortable in practicing, the money, yes, it becomes an issue, but it's secondary. But as I was saying, with a proper restructuring of a health system, you would find that there'll be a stem in the tide as far as the outflow is concerned. But added to that, we need to put policies in place to ensure that we keep people servicing us. I got a scholarship, and I had to serve my bond. I've served my bond several times over, but I just felt that I have something to contribute to my country, so I'm going to stick around. It's not that I couldn't go and work in another island. I could have done that. And there are people who are conscious of their their input and are dedicated to ensuring that the country develops, and you'll find them. But, like everything else, a man's freedom to choose where he works is his freedom to choose where he works. I remember saying to a former employer, I'm a wage slave. I mean, I work for you and you pay me. What I do is up to me. You cannot demand that I stay if I want to go. So I think the same is true of the medical field, but I can guarantee that once the health system is properly restructured, because it has to be restructured, you'll find the incidence of people leaving the country would reduce. But strangely, though, you'll find people leaving, but you find others coming in. I mean, guys who could have chosen to go and work in another country decides he wants to work in Grenada. So, but that's how fluid labor is. You can decide where to work where you want to work.
But let me ask bring this aspect of it up, because we have nurses who are leaving and so on. We have some who are staying and that sort of thing. We have some who have trained and some who have even trained recently and are basically trying their best to get out of the bond. Yeah. After the training being paid for by the government of Grenada, trying their very best to get out of the bond now, so without even providing service to the people of Grenada, without even entering the system, trying their best not to even enter the system, and then flee to other islands. Or not even other islands, some of them to the US and to the UK, where a Grenadian nurse is highly valued.
I usually say that there's a difference between a profession and a job. And if you're called to what you want to do, then your dedication to your job would be quite different. And it's just like, let's go on the pastoral side. Many years ago, we used to say pastors have to be called to serve. These days, you find pastors going in for the money. So it depends on why you go in there.
It's a theological school.
Exactly. You go to school, you have your first degree or second degree, and you come to work, and your calling is not really pastoral. So some of the nurses, even teachers, that's not a calling. I mean, I came to a system when I came to school where teachers were dedicated to their work. They were teachers. Now we have teachers who are employed as teachers. That's their work, not their calling, not their profession.
The teachers who may come back to have taught you, in some instances, taught your parents back in those days. You don't see that happening much. You don't see that happening much now.
Well, let me just say, I am I'm sorry, I had to run out. But I am in that very same situation. My grade 6 teacher who taught me in grade 6 is now teaching my daughter in grade 6.
Because they wouldn't leave. They're interested in education. And to them, they love seeing the young minds that they mold and how they develop, and then to see their children come in.
Of course, of course.
We have seen the I want to say the deterioration of our health system, community health systems. You would recall, or maybe you won't, because you're quite much younger than I am, when in many of the districts there was a resident nurse. I mean, they would frown and quarrel when you wake them up at 3 a.m, but they're there.
They're doing it,
right? And those nurses then were dedicated to their work. They stayed in the health center. So there's a nurse. So at 2 a.m, there's an issue, you go and knock the nurse door. And she would come out and frown, but she will deal with you. Things have changed where nurses finish work at a particular time and they don't stay indoors because I guess I understand that there were renegotiation with the labor issues and the unions were saying they're not supposed to be staying in, etc. But I think in every profession, you'll find that after a while, people's attitude towards what they do will change. And there are still quite a number of dedicated medical practitioners. And we spoke about teachers. There are quite a number of dedicated teachers who are not in it for the money.
Absolutely.
But they're in it because they are impacting
and it shows
other persons. And it shows.
Look at the results that you see coming out from the CPEA, the CSEC and so on exams. You see from the results coming out. But we spoke about the people who are leaving. But another part of the human resource problem, and I know we're spending a significant amount of time on this, we'll get off it in a short while. The doctors who are within the system, who generally show a face at the general hospital because they're on bond, so they show a face there. But the main thing is to get down into the practice in town.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that when you slate that doctor as the ministry and you say, okay, we're sending you to Carriacou to provide service, that outright say me ain't going up there. And the reason that they refuse to go is that they have a private practice here in Grenada, which is where they consider they're making all their money from. And they don't want to be stuck in Carriacou and can't service their private practice here on mainland.
Yeah.
So we have a situation where doctors that are needed, that could be sent to Carriacou, refuse to go.
Yeah.
And even within Grenada, and it is happening. This is not something that I'm making up. Doctors who refuse to go to the Princess Alice Hospital. They refuse. I want to stay in town. I want to work in a general hospital because they know it's easier. You go to the general hospital, you spend an hour, you spend 2 hours, and then you head to your practice in town, or you head to your practice around St. George. Some that are bluntly refusing, and they're not going to Princess Alice and work.
As I said last time I was here.
So not only those that leave, those that stay.
As I said last time I was here, Sheldon, the introduction of national health insurance would be a revolutionary change in the health system. Because as far as health providers are concerned, once a health provider is registered as a health provider, whether within the public system or the private system, the client has a choice to decide where he wants to go, where she wants to go. And I think I said that when I was here last time. In conversation with medical people, and I asked them, I said, but, with this, the imminent introduction of NHI, your private practice you would have to look closely, in the sense that you're saying that the reason why you're in your private practice is because the government cannot pay you to stay with them full time. And as a question, how much do you need to be paid to stay full time? Because the challenge would be, if you're a medical doctor and you're working at the hospital, for example, and your shift is from 6 in the morning to, let's say, 5 in the afternoon. After the shift, you can go to your private practice, right? That's a current arrangement. Now, how do you expect to be reimbursed? Because when a client has a choice to come to you in the public system or to come to you in your private office, right? Now, you have to be paid. It is no longer the client that's coming and pay you $80. It is the system that's going to be paying you. That is the same system that you're working within, right? So that is, I think I said last time that one of the biggest challenges NHI would have is to negotiate with these providers who work in both the public and the private sector, because you'd have to strike a balance to ensure that they can provide private practice, but at the same time, the remuneration they receive has to be settled. Because you see, when I asked the doctor, how much would you be satisfied with? So you want to work only in the public sector. You said the reason why you have a private practice is because government cannot pay you. How much? I haven't received that numbers yet. But there are persons who are not in the public sector and they have their private practice. You cannot put them into this. So those persons who have the private practice, like Dr. Marisha, for example, he has his private practice. He never worked with the system. So that's a different type of negotiation as against Dr. X, who works at a hospital or works in the clinic. And he has to get there for, 8 o'clock in the morning, and he gets there for 11 and leaves at 1, right? And then goes to his practice. What about those who see people in the public sector and tell them, come to see me in my office? But that's not the topic for today.
But you also have those that do that and say, okay, you need to do an operation, but no, let's do it through my private practice.
This will be corrected, and all of this will be corrected under NHI.
As you say, there's another discussion.
Yeah.
But Stan, I have a question. So in terms of that, because what you're stating there really is a bigger issue than that we really see. So has there been consultation with doctors or stakeholders, because that's what they will be, stakeholders, to say, for them to give, because, and that's what we've been saying, consultation is so important, to give suggestions and ways in which they think that this can work, because if it works, it benefits them in a great way. So they would want it to work, right? Has there been any consultation with these stakeholders to see what their views are on how it can be managed?
I cannot speak to what I do not know. What I do know is that in the early rounds, there was a meeting with the Public Health Association, I think it's called, where doctors were present and other practitioners. And they were given a broad outline of what would happen.
Right.
But they have not, as far as I know, they have not been in-depth discussion with providers.
Right.
Because everyone will have to be contracted. So you'll have to discuss with them. So that is going to come. I know there are plans afoot to have that done. But as far as I know, they have not been, everybody is hearing that this thing is coming, but one-on-one consultation with the individual stakeholders have not happened at the level it should.
Right, because we've had consultation, and maybe that's a very important thing that needs to happen, because we've had consultations with the general public. We've let them know this is what is happening. We can provide as much information as we can on the national health insurance, but then again, it's more important to have consultation with these stakeholders, because they would be the direct line of contact in order to make this thing successful. Right? So it's probably best that we, as soon as possible, maybe have a consultation. Doesn't have to be anything big, just a general sit down with them to see where their minds are at as it relates to the national health insurance, how they feel, what they think can happen, what they think may or may not work, because they are in the system, so they know, they have a first-hand view on what is going on. And I know the topic that y'all trying to save for another time is going to come up, because you do have issues where the same doctor I see in emergency room treats me so much more different when I go to their private practice. And these things are things that we have to look at, because it affects our health system on a public level.
The thing is, I think that the NHI is going to eliminate, as Stan keeps saying, it's going to eliminate a lot of that.
Right.
Because they'll get paid.
Yeah, it'll deal with the administrative
issue.
issue.
Is getting paid.
Right, you'll get paid.
That's the main thing. But Stan, to get back fully on track here, we're dealing with the strengthening of the health system.
Right.
We're seeing two other pillars, one of them being the human resource management and the other being the facilities.
Right.
You're seeing the facility being built in St. John, which is going to provide an improvement to the people on the western coast. And especially because oftentimes we worry what happens if there is some incident on the west coast that prevents people who might be injured from getting down to the south of the island.
Right.
And this facility will assist with that.
Right.
But also in providing a lot of treatment and opportunities for people who otherwise have to travel down to the St. George General Hospital.
Right. You see,
easing the burden there.
Right. Healthcare is generally divided into three aspects. There's primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, and tertiary healthcare. The hospital provides secondary. A number of cases that are seen at the hospital can be dealt with on the primary level. So health system strengthening generally aims first at upgrading our primary healthcare facilities. So some of the things that are being done at the hospital, for example, don't have to be done there. Can be done in our health centers. So the facility involved, in fact, one of my children was saying to me that this thing looked like a hospital. it's not a health center. I said to him, it's a polyclinic. But the intention is to ensure that you upgrade your primary healthcare facilities to the level at which you ease the burden of the secondary care, because that's where the monies are spent. At the general hospital, that's where the bulk of the monies are spent. So if you can upgrade your primary health care, it means you ease the flow. Like I said, I don't know if you've ever gone to casualty. The cases that are there are not critical cases. Cases that can be treated if there's a doctor in a health center. You know?
You're right.
And that's what's going to happen with strength of health system strengthening. Yeah.
And you're going to leave. Let's say you're going to leave Victoria St. Mark to come down to town.
Yeah.
Where you have an asthma attack. I mean, you're the person with the asthma attack. I had them before, so you're the person with the asthma attack is like you're about to die.
Right.
And people looking at you is like, no, we need to get them to the hospital. But it might be something that could be dealt with at the health center.
So that's one of the things that health system strengthening will do, to upgrade your primary healthcare facilities to ensure that you can take care of some of the cases that would normally go to the hospital in the absence of upgrade of the primary health care.
Your finger cut and you head down to casualty because you have you need
because all the centers are closed. I mean, there's no place open. I mean, I know St. Patrick used to have a very robust medical center. That all but, I mean, I was reading some reports recently that, it is almost non-existent. And I said, I alluded to it early, we have to be careful, especially as far as labor is concerned, that when we negotiate, we do not deal ourselves out of the game. Because that's what basically happened,
when the same people that
exactly, exactly. When you
medical professionals that might need the facility,
exactly when you're saying that nurses should not work beyond X number of hours, so they should not be in the facility, they should be at their homes, this other stuff. I'm not saying that everybody don't need rest, but we have to be careful when we try to impose certain stuff, and we can recall when attempts were made to satirize the hospital what happened. Labor was up against it. But we are seeing that in order for healthcare to be delivered at that kind of level, we cannot be doing business as usual. Things cannot remain as is, and that's what health system strengthening is all about. Identifying the areas that we can improve it, so that at the end of the day, people can have access to quality healthcare. And let me just say this: I should have said it earlier. My being here, I'm not representing the Ministry of Health. I'm not speaking for on behalf of NHI organization. I'm not a doctor. Economics, insurance. So I just want to make that clear. When I speak, I'm not speaking for the Ministry of Health. I'm just giving broad information on the systems and what is done and normally is done when NHI has been introduced.
Right. And I would like to see the NHI bring us to a place where we can now say, I have a nurse in my constituency that I can call on. Let's say somebody gets a cut in the night and needs a couple stitches. In my constituency, there is a medical station where I can call on this nurse and say, hey, look, there's an emergency, can you attend to it? So I don't have to leave all the way in Mount Morris and go all the way to casualty and sit there and wait until, because emergencies do happen. And they, of course, when we go to casualty, they get preference over whatever else is there. Not that everybody's health is not important, but of course, we have to understand that there are some situations that are more dire than others, right? And we can come to a place where I can get a nurse in my constituency or in my community that can go into the health center in the night that I can call on, of course, that is being compensated for her time, and deal with my issue. I have a son with asthma. I would go to the hospital 3 o'clock in the morning because my son had an asthma attack, until I got to the place where I say, I have mine and nebulizer and put home for myself, and I'm going to deal with that at home, because it is possible, and we need to, I guess the health insurance is going to bring us to that point where we talk about a lot of preventative measures, a lot of preventative health care that allows us to deal with certain things from home and not have to run to the hospital every time there is an issue, So the national health insurance, of course, we know is going to cover a lot of issues. It's very broad, and it is going to cover a lot of issues. So it is important for us as a Grenadian public to really look into what the aspects of this is.
So we're strengthening. We've dealt with the human resource. We've dealt with the facilities, and I hope the intention is to put a similar facility to St. John on the East Coast as well.
Well, probably.
We want something bigger. We ain't saying that. We want something. Honorable Oliver Joseph, you know what you're doing. We want a big one in St. David. All the people from the lower part of St. Andrew, and even the people from the top part of, St. George people will still come down. But at least, because when you look at the volume of people in St. David, and what happens on a night time, you see a vehicle speeding coming down the road because they're trying to make it to the general hospital and so on. If at least there's a polyclinic in St. David that could stabilize a person, or at least deal with some of the minor stuff that the person does not have to be rushed down to the general hospital and so on, would be perfect. So we deal with the facilities, we've dealt with the human resource issues and so on. Under what other issues have to be taken into context when we strengthen the health system now?
Policies. There has to be some concentration on policies. We have issues like the IT, information, health information. Because you see, as it stands right now, things are scant. When I say things are scant, I mean you go to see a doctor in St. David, then you go to see one in St. George, then you go to the hospital, you go to another one. Every time you go to these doctors, you would have to rehash the information, tell that person the same thing over and over again. With health system strengthening, there would be in place a health information system that would capture information for every client. So you don't have to be guessing, or the doctor don't have to be guessing why is Sheldon here, or what should I treat Sheldon for. There will be a reservoir of information. In fact, as we speak, the Ministry of Health is in the process of bringing on stream EMR, electronic medical records, where information can be captured and stored so that care can be given more efficiently. So when you go to see a provider, he would be able to see your history, your medical history, and we spoke about that briefly last time. So health system strengthening would also involve ensuring that you have a proper IT system in place that can capture information regarding people's health. Now, that's not only for you or for me, but it's for planning purposes. So you didn't now have an idea as to what to use the word trending. What are the trending health issues? Where should we concentrate? Where should we be putting our resources? So we have a history of people's medical conditions, and we can plan forward based on what we see. So that is a key issue with regard to health system strengthening. And like I said, there are some things that have already been done, and fortunately the Ministry of Health is already in the process. In the public facilities, I know, and the arrangements are being made to have the EMR also for private practitioners who want to have systems.
It's going to assist the person that has to be rushed into the emergency room and you have to do an operation. So immediately you know their blood type, you know if they're diabetic or not, if they're suffering from high blood pressure, what other underlying issues that there may be while you're dealing with whatever it is that they came in for. Maybe they're in an automobile incident and you need to do immediate surgery on them. So you need to know exactly, well, this is the type of whatever. You need to know that. But if it's electronic, other than that, you usually somebody have to go in a drawer and pull out a thing on you, you know.
See, added
they
to
have
that,
to go in a big drawer and they have to look through and pull your file.
Added to that, it will help to contain cost, because that person may have had a X-ray not too long ago.
Right.
And that information, that image is on the person's file. So a doctor would not say, okay, well, I need you to go and get another X-ray, because he can then read from your file, these are what we saw or what is there as far as your X-ray is concerned. Same with AMR, EKG, all those things. Your medical history would be there, and it helps in diagnosing problems. You don't have to be guessing.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, you would probably have to send that client to do everything that he did before, because, he probably don't have it. He gave a doctor and the doctor never gave him back. No, you just pull up the record, so you don't have to repeat. So that would contain cost. As far as the client is concerned, he doesn't have to go and spend monies to do things that
he's already done. Yeah.
The history of his medication, what has been taken,
what he's allergic to.
All of those things would be there. So it would make the providing of care a lot easier in terms of knowing your client. So the client is ahead of you, in front of you, and you basically have information.
Right.
It's like you go to. Yesterday I was going through my vehicle cubby hole, and I saw a bill from McIntyre, and they identified the things that they did on the vehicle. So if I go to another mechanic and he says, look, you need to do this, I said, but it's already done. That's the kind of information you don't want to have.
Good.
So
somebody want to change your oil and change last week and change your filter that was in this and Saturday last week.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but together with this, I see that you have the issue of how is this going to be financed, the strengthening that health system. Because if you're speaking of things like with the human resource, one of the issues that they're having, one of the reasons that they're leaving, not the only issue, is the issue of remuneration
Yeah.
for work done. And if one of the other issues that we're having is the state of facilities and so on, you're speaking of a significant input of finance to help correct those two issues.
Yeah, you see, health system strengthening recognizes that your providers need to be remunerated. So you put a system in place to ensure that on a health system strengthening, you're not paid. Somebody just pull a figure out of the head, but it is more based on the service you provide, right? And again, kind of leaning back into NHI, where when a provider has to be remunerated, there are different avenues. You can do fee for service. You can do DRG, diagnostic related approach. You can do salaries. There are different ways you can remunerate a provider, right? So those things will be taken in consideration. And more, it has been recognized that medical providers should be compensated for the quality of their work. So a doctor who just sees a patient and receives $5,000 a month should not be in the same category as a doctor who sees a patient and ensures that that patient gets quality care.
Yeah.
He will be compensated based on the care he provides, right? So there'll be parameters which measures the service that you provide, and remuneration would be based on that. So right now, most of our providers are salary-based. They get a salary.
Right.
So whether you're a good doctor or a bad doctor, you get the same pay once you're in the same grade, right? In a case where you are remunerated based on the service you provide, that'll be quite different.
Right.
In fact, in the BVI, when they introduced NHI, there are some doctors who were saying to the NHI people, you can't pay me the same amount that you pay Sheldon. Yes, we are both doctors, but check my record, check his record. I mean, I am a better doctor. I provide better service, so I should be paid more. And you'll find in negotiating with providers, that will come up. You can't pay me like everybody else. I am providing a premium service. My records show that I'm an excellent provider. So don't group me in this same bracket. So there'll be in negotiating with providers. Yes, you'll have basic fees for different procedures, but you'll have to recognize that when somebody goes to Marisho, for example, Dr. Marisho, they probably get a more all-round care than if they go to the guy who just have his stethoscope around his neck in his office. You know, so then the compensation would be different in terms of the care that's provided. So that would be recognized. So hopefully the issue of persons leaving because they figure they're not paid sufficient would be addressed. And you'll have to match what is paid, because this is healthcare is a very lucrative field in terms of demand for specialists.
It's not like you could do without it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
You have to have it.
So if you recognize that somebody can go to St. Vincent and receive $10,000, now St. Vincent doesn't have NHI. And that's the advantage we're going to have in Grenada. When we set up this system, it would recognize that we are seeing healthcare as a holistic thing. Right? So a Grenadian practitioner would really want to leave that system and go and work in another system where it's salary based, right? There'll be incentive payments, all this other stuff would be there, so that the provider would be encouraged to improve on his practice. Right?
I like what you said, and I can relate to what you're saying. And I think most Grenadians at this point can relate to what you're saying, because it not only allows them to provide more holistic and more detailed care, but it holds them accountable for the care that they do provide as well. Taking, for example, just recently when I had to take my daughter to the doctor, I've been to, 4 doctors so far? One doctor, the last doctor that I went to was the only doctor that was able to diagnose her. So one doctor diagnosed, and I was referred to 3 other doctors those 3 other doctors would have received compensation, of course, for the work that they provided, whether it was writing a prescription for medication or it was just giving me a piece of paper and telling me to go to do a test that I still have to pay for, right? I still have to pay for the test, plus I still have to pay the doctor for giving me the recommendation to take that same test. You know, it's different. So how do I now measure what the other doctors would have done to what the doctor that diagnosed her has done? You know, he solved the problem. He addressed the issue. The others, in still trying to figure out what it was and would have recommended me to other doctors. How do you measure something like that? So I'm assuming that this would cover and it would encompass all of these things and prevent things like this from even occurring to begin with. Right? So I like that. I can relate to that.
Let me ask 2 connected questions as we're speaking about the strengthening of the healthcare system itself to be able to effectively deal with the introduction of the National Health Insurance. One, and I always like to look out for my brothers and sisters in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Have the National Health Insurance taken into consideration the special needs of the people of the island of Petit Martinique? I'm not even going to Carriacou. The special needs of the people of the island of Petit Martinique. Because you can imagine what it's like probably for someone who is in labor that have to go on a boat and then head over to Carriacou to give birth. I know that in the past there was a facility that was set up in Petit Martinique for birthing. I'm not sure if it is still operational. I'm speaking in ignorance here, and somebody from Petit Martinique could probably call or message and tell me, Mama Jane, I know you and the husband lie down on the bed listening with your headphone in your ears right now. Give me a call or give me a message and let me know. Yeah? Or give us a call on 440-7377. Because there are special needs for the people of Petit Martinique.
Right.
Do they have a standing facility in Petit Martinique that offers services, immediate services to the people who are there? Or is it a situation you have to put them on a boat and speed them over with the ambulance waiting down there in
Harveyvale?
Well, not even Harveyvale.
Windward,
yeah. I was thinking Harveyvale myself.
Windward, yeah.
But with the ambulance waiting in Windward to rush them up to the Princess Royal Hospital. What can be done to improve the services to the people of Petit Martinique? Has that been taken into consideration? And secondly, in the context of the National Health Insurance, what has been done to protect it against some of the shocks that happen every now and again? And I'm saying this in the context of what we've seen happen with the National Insurance. When things came around like Chickpea and Zika, that there was basically a shock to the national, because here it is that you have to deal with a whole heaping set of people, thousands of people literally, that should be working, that are now at home and can't work in some instances for as long as a month. Because Chickpea, some people a month to take before they were back to normal, some even longer. Zika, we have some people that still can't even re-enter the job market up to now because they got Guillain-Barré. There are people in Grenada who went through that and can't even return to the job. That shocked the National Insurance Scheme. It will definitely affect the National Health Insurance. What is being done to protect the National Health Insurance against that sort of shock? So I'll take the Petit Martinique first and then the shocks.
Well, I cannot speak to the facilities in Petit Martinique. I honestly, I'm not aware.
No, but have discussions, because I know you've been around the discussions.
Yeah.
Have discussions taken place as to what is the best model to be used to assist the people of Petit Martinique? Because I feel it for them. To see how some women does be going when they're in labor, and to be going through that, and then you're on a speedboat to get over to Carriacou. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Well, you see, short of putting a full facility in Petit Martinique, I think what would happen is that because the care that will be provided would be more holistic. Short of somebody having a premature baby, I think what would happen is that a lady who is maybe 9 months or 8 months and whatever may have to relocate so that you don't have that issue. I mean, she'll move to mainland, not mainland, but Carriacou, so that they won't have this emergency. And the same happens here in Grenada. In the past, when there was a nurse in Victoria, the woman stay home And I mean, they send and call a nurse when they're in labor, right? They don't do that anymore because they may have to go to Guelph or St. George's, you know. So I'm just saying, I suspect what is going to happen is that in the delivery of care, right, those things would be considered, advice would be given so that you don't have those emergencies. But like I said, I can't speak specifically, but what I do know is that high on the agenda is a strengthening of the primary care facilities, which would mean that you're preparing for those kind of situations. And like I said, you know, you may have to move the patient into a facility where they can receive
But
the
there's
care
a
that
cost
they
to
need.
that.
Yeah, there's a cost to that. There's a cost to that. I mean, all of those things. And that's why you see health system strengthening recognizes that if you can, you do things, you have preventative measures that you take, right? The cost up front will be a lot less than the cost at the back. It's the same like if you have to hire the Osprey to take a patient down to Grenada from Carriacou, right? And I mean, it's a lot of money to do that. With the advent of national health insurance, would NHI pay the X number of $1,000 to take a patient down? Or because that patient will be monitored and they now have an opportunity to have regular checks, would there be a need for an emergency, or would that patient be on island here? Because we recognize that that particular problem the patient has, it was diagnosed up front, and we anticipate that this may happen, so we take measures ahead of time. So all of that's going to happen. You see, what is happening, what generally happens is that because we don't have money, we don't spend for health.
Right.
But when there's an emergency, we have to find the money to take care of the emergency. And NHI would ensure that this thing doesn't happen.
Right.
Because you'll have people being monitored, preventative care measures will be taken, so you would not you'll not be reacting.
Yeah.
Right? Things will be done up front, and you would avoid those emergencies.
Those emergencies.
Yes. There would be emergencies, but you know, those that you can anticipate, then you make provision for it.
Right. And that's why dialogue is important, because you get questions like that coming up, and it gives you, if you haven't been thinking about it, well, guess what? Now you're thinking about what are we going to do in this instance. So these conversations are very important. And I think a lot of consultation is still yet to be had surrounding the NHI, because there's a lot of aspects of it, a lot of little pieces that needs to be fit into the puzzle in order to make it what we really want it to be. So that's why so much dialogue, I believe, is still yet to be had, and it's so important for us to join in with that dialogue.
When even just outside of Petit Martinique, we're looking at Carriacou itself, and we still have the situation where numbers of persons, nearly every time the Osprey comes down, you could bet your bottom dollar that there's someone that's coming down.
Stretcher.
Not necessarily on a stretcher.
Not stretcher.
They might be walking,
yeah.
but it's coming down to sort out a medical issue.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a simple test that they have to do. And therefore, part of the entire discussion has to be, and I know that the Ministry of Health had persons training in radiology and so on to provide x-ray services out of Carriacou. And I know there are some services offered in Carriacou, but also to get Carriacou up to the point that at least the primary health care and the basic services can be offered there, without the person having to take the boat and come down.
Yeah.
And then probably overnight, and then take the boat or the plane to go back up.
One of the things that would be addressed is the whole question of diagnostic services. Because in Carriacou, there is a medical center, a private medical center. The question as to whether or not the persons who own it would want to invest in medical equipment, not knowing if they'll have sufficient persons accessing that care, is something that would be addressed. And one of the things that, one of the recommendations on the remuneration under the NHI system is a private facility, for example, can say to NHI, I'm going to be investing in this piece of equipment that's going to cost me $500,000. Can you purchase it up front for me? And we have an arrangement whereby every time I see a patient, that cost is offset against that. So that's one way of remunerating providers. In fact, I I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the gentleman that's Forrester, Mr. Forrester. I saw it on online. He anticipates that NHI would come, and the demand for his services would be increased. So he is thinking forward,
right,
and equipping his facility, expecting that there'll be an uptake when NHI comes into place. And you'll find happening what you have found, or what you will see, is that in every place that NHI is introduced, the quality of the equipment to begin with have improved. Because a provider now knows, look, maybe I had a 10-slice MRI, a CT scan, if I'm saying the right thing. But no, I can't afford to buy a more expensive piece of equipment, because I'm not exposed now just to the 5,000 clients I see per year, but to 95,000 Grenadians can access this. So I can comfortably invest, because I know that I'll be seeing much more patients. So what you will find happening is that the facilities that we have on island here would be upgraded.
Right.
People anticipate that, look, we'll have whereas in the past, the ordinary man can't find $1,200 to come and do a CT scan. Now he doesn't have to bother about the $1,200. He has NHI. He produces his card, he gets his CT scan. So I'm going to see more people. Of course, the $1,200 would probably go down to about 6 or 7 because you have volume. But what I'm saying is that in Carriacou, for example, I suspect and I expect the discussion would be held with not only the public sector, but the private sector, to have equipment in Carriacou, so that persons don't have to come to Grenada to do that service if it can be done there. And what is going to happen, you're not only talking about equipment, you're also talking about specialists. So you'll have more trained persons.
Right.
People are going to ensure that, look, I want to be able to operate this thing, so I'm going to get trained to do it. So there's a spin-off, as far as...
Opens a job market.
Exactly, the job market would be blown wide
What you
open.
don't want to do is to take some young people in Carriacou, train them to use that equipment, and then as soon as you finish training them, they decide, I want to do it in Carriacou. I want to do that in St. George's. I want to be in St. George's.
Yeah. But
so that's where the policy comes in.
But you know...
so you see where it ties into the policy.
I worked in Carriacou.
Because it's happened there.
Yes, I know it has happened.
Yeah, in many
But I'm just
instances.
giving an example. I worked in Carriacou for about, on and off, for about 3 years. And I've always said I prefer to work in Carriacou than in Grenada.
Any day.
Right? No, you'll have people from Carriacou want to come to Grenada. But Grenadians who go to Carriacou to work are comfortable there. No, I guess, it's people say, when you're living in it, you don't appreciate it as much as if you're not living in it. But then I think the whole question of if somebody, for example, goes to study radiology or those kind of medical things, and he's working with a facility in Carriacou, he's a specialist.
Yeah.
He probably could come to Grenada and take his chances of getting a job.
Yeah.
But he's in a market where his skills are needed.
Are needed, yeah.
So, I mean, there may be people who want to be mobile, but do like, what's his name? Hilton Valley Pharmacy. He started in Carriacou.
And then he expanded.
Expanded to Grenada. So you'll find things happening, and with the imminent coming on stream of NHI, we talking about health benefits, but there's so much economic spin-offs to this whole thing that, when we look at it in totality, it would not only benefit the caregivers, but even the investors, people who in the past would not be bothering about spending monies on they'll say, look, let me spend the money and get this thing. I've seen it in Colombia. I've been to Colombia twice. And the quality of equipment that you see in these facilities, Sheldon, is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, in Colombia, this health service is rated almost equivalent to the United States. There are people who live in the United States and go to Colombia to get care.
Sure is that they're going for?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay,
not
all
only
right.
because
It's
of
Colombia, eh?
not only because of the cost, but the stigma about Colombia is dying. Colombia is now the medical facilities there is outstripping the other sea, the big sea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean the quality of care is really, really good, and they are up to date. I was fortunate to look at an operation being done. I'm standing in the observation booth watching an operation being done using robotics in Colombia.
Wow.
And the gentleman, before he did it, he showed us how he programmed everything. They had to make sure they have everything right and just let the robot do the work.
Right.
I was standing there watching that, and I pinching myself to make sure that I was really there. But that's what happens when people are assured that they'll be paid for the service they provide.
Right.
And that's what the NHI system does. It provides for the facility, for the investor, an avenue for getting paid. And we would see an improvement. I can guarantee the public system would improve, the private system would improve even more, because people can now, you decide, look, I'm going to take a loan because I know I have 95,000 Grenadians who possibly can come to my facility.
And I feel we need to make a disclaimer that we're not saying that as soon as the national health insurance is enacted, that the health system is just going to go from a 1 to a 10. It takes time. It's a process. But something you said that really sticks, and I think we all need to take that into consideration. National health insurance also provides us with that peace of mind that whenever something becomes an issue, that we have hope. There are some people who, like we said the last time we spoke, who are sick and don't even know how they're going to afford to pay for the services that they need to even find out what's wrong with them or to even assist them in getting better. But with the national health insurance, at least there is this hope. You know what you're paying for. You know what services are available to you. You know what you are going to get. So there's that peace of mind that comes with it. And of course, we know for most people who've been sick, if you're less stressed, the chances of you getting better is higher, right? So it also has that benefit attached to it. Another thing that we have spinning off of that is now we are able to teach our children about market research. A lot of our children don't do market research. We go to college and university. We study all of our subjects. We want to be a doctor. We want to be a lawyer. Yes, that's fine. But what does the market what do we have available in the market? What is necessary? What is there a need for? Everybody's going to be a general practitioner when we don't have gynecologists and we don't have pediatricians and we don't have brain surgeons and we don't have people specializing in different areas. So it's going to open up now for children who want to be doctors and who want to be just general healthcare providers, whether it's a pharmacist or a technician or whatever it may be. It opens that job market for them as well so that they have options. So there's so many spin-offs, like you said, from this national health insurance that we have to look at, and not just look at the aspect that it's going to be taxed or it's going to be, or the money's going to come from somewhere. Of course, we know it has to be paid for because we're paying for quality service, right?
But it brings us back to the point I was trying to make as earlier as well. What is being done to protect the national health insurance against the shocks? And every now and again, we have something popping up. You hear about Ebola. Thank God we haven't had Ebola in these parts and so on, but it pops up. You have yellow fever the other day made a resurgence within the region. You have these different things that come up from time to time. Once one of them, to the level of chickpea or Zika, which are the two main ones, we always have dengue is always here, folks. Dengue is not something that just come.
Yeah.
Dengue throughout the Caribbean every year. What is being done to protect that system so that the system doesn't buckle under the pressure of that? And financially as well, what will be done to protect the national health insurance against those sort of shocks that we're seeing coming more and more, whether man-made and engineered or whether just due to the fact that the whole world is connected now, being able to transfer from some virus that now exists somewhere in Asia that's suddenly going to appear in the Caribbean and take the whole place.
Right. Critical to health financing. national health insurance is the sustainability, right?
Right.
You would not want to start something that can crash after a epidemic or pandemic. So in any system, what happens is that you purchase, because national health insurance is like a big insurance company,
Yeah.
and you follow the same practice as insurance companies practice. So what would normally happen, or what would happen, is that from a local standpoint, you identify how much you think that fund, the National Insurance Fund, can survive,
Right.
per person. So if we say, okay, $50,000 per person is comfortable for us to pay, anything in excess of that, we would need help.
Right.
So a national health insurance scheme would always have reinsurance. So you purchase cover for catastrophic cases, like Sheldon is referring to. So the fund is protected. You purchase a package
Right.
to protect your fund. And like I said, it's reinsurance. It's same like an insurance company. The same thing is done. You pick what is called your retention. You pick how much you feel comfortable paying. And then you purchase in the event. So if my pick is $50,000 per person,
Right.
when it goes to $55,000, there's somebody out there who's giving me the extra $5 back.
Right.
Because my system is catering only for only 5, right? If there's a catastrophe, when you add the 50,000 times 50,000 persons, that's going to blow a fund. So we also protect the fund against catastrophic.
Like Bahamas right now.
Like Bahamas right now. So the same thing that's done on the regular insurance company is done on the NHI. You purchase reinsurance to protect your fund, because we recognize that there'll be spurts, there'll be times when you would have a run on the fund
as has happened to national insurance with
yes.
with the various pandemics, if you want to call it I don't think it reached the level of pandemics, but
epidemic, maybe.
Chickpea and Zika and these sort of things. Stan, we're quickly running out of time. Anything else you want us to know about the strengthening? I think this conversation has to continue and strengthen. There's a lot of areas we haven't gotten into yet. So again, Stan, we expect to see you here once the sun shines and the weather allows, and you are able to, according to your schedule, to be here next week Thursday with us again.
Right.
Specifically, we're going to start earlier. We're starting from 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Discussing the strengthening of the healthcare system. Is there anything else you want to leave on the table in the final few minutes that we have regarding the strengthening that you believe the average Grenadian really needs to understand from now, so that by the time we get into national health insurance and they see things happening, they understand already why that's being done?
Yeah, we're well versed.
Right. So what the intention of health system strengthening is to ensure that you have a system in place to take care of your healthcare. In Grenada, we have a large number of GPs, as you mentioned. What health system strengthening will do is to identify the specialist areas that needs to be attended to.
Right.
So you look at your human resource database,
Right.
and see how many specialists you have.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what the incidence of particular illnesses, and whether you need to train people to take care of that. So you have a system in place that would not only recognize that a person may have a common cold or back pain, but we have issues like heart problems, cancer. Those things are costly, right? Many of the cases have to be treated off island. So you'll do an inventory, you'll do a take as to what you can provide locally, and plan ahead. Health system strengthening is a process, right? It's not something that just wake up tomorrow and do, right? So you plan ahead to ensure that you take care of the incidences of illnesses and so on. So it is basically planning for cases to respond to health cases, health incidents, So it would be an ongoing process. We have started in Grenada already. Like I said, we have the facility up in Guelph being built.
Yeah.
We have the hospital, the phase of the hospital. All of those things, when you put them together, the intention is to improve the delivery of healthcare. Right? So it is, and it's not just only the plant, as we started by saying. One of the aims of health system strengthening is to ensure that the behavior of both our health practitioners and our clients, that is, we the people, changes.
Right.
Because with the introduction of national health insurance, there'll be heavy emphasis on preventative care.
Right.
And preventative care is not just taking some vitamins, but it's to ensure that people exercise, to ensure that they eat right, to ensure that they do their screening when it's necessary, So all of those things, when you add it up, the outcomes would be better care, better health for everyone. Because at the end of the day, a healthy nation is a more productive nation.
Of course.
So that's the aim, is to ensure that all people have access to health care, but they cannot just depend on when they get sick. John Public, you and I have a great role to play. And we don't have to wait until the system strengthening. We have to ensure that we do what's necessary now to protect our health. We have to do what's necessary to prevent ourselves from being sick. I hope, I don't know if any of you guys play tennis. I'm looking for a tennis partner because that's my primary method of exercise. I have not been able to do it for a while. I have my racket, I have my balls, and there's a court down in Tantin. So I'm throwing it out. Anybody who wants to play with me on mornings.
I haven't played in a while, but I have my racket. Maybe
Okay,
I'll take you up on the offer.
Good. Yeah, it's all about, the point I'm making is that we have to take ownership of our health.
We do.
And that's what a lot of us, we just wait until we get sick and throw it on the doctors. But national health insurance would ensure that the health care is promoted to the extent where people recognize that they have a major part to play. Because if you deal with it on the front end, you may never have to deal with it at the back end.
True.
Folks, I'll just keep doing that. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. It's been wonderful being here with you. And again, we'd like to thank you, Stan the Man, for being here with us. And we look forward to seeing him next week where we can have further discussions. Because watch, we ain't past page 1 yet on strengthening. We ain't past page 1 yet. Yeah, we're just on page 1. There's a lot in relation to the strengthening of the healthcare system, because oftentimes, and this is where I want to congratulate you, Stan, as well as Ms. Duncan, for starting the conversation on this. Many times we hear, we need to improve the healthcare system, we need to improve the healthcare system. But the folks that saying that never get into the nitty-gritty. This is what needs to be done. Right. This is what exists now. This is why what exists now exists. And this is how we need to address it, and the policies that we need to put in place to address it. And the outcomes will be. It's just broad statements of, we need to fix healthcare bad.
Yeah.
And not saying exactly what needs to be, and even making it look a lot worse than it really is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, for political reasons, by various persons, for simply political reasons.
Yeah.
So we'd like to thank both of you. And again, we'd like to thank you in specific, Stan, for being here. And we look forward to seeing you and speaking with you next week. So, folks, we'd like to thank all of the stations. Those of you that were calling that I couldn't answer your call because we were having that discussion, we say thanks to you as well. And to our technical man, Nazi B, down there in the back. Right, nice. So, folks, we'll be back tomorrow with more Hard Talk for you. In whatever you say and whatever you do it safe and secure. I want to be speaking to and with you.
And not about you.
Love each and every one of you.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
Hope rides on the rays of the sun here. So too does the resilience of the people. But in the battle against climate change, will hope and resilience be enough? when the lives of those who contribute the least feel the brunt of its effects.
For us here in the Caribbean, climate change and its devastating impacts are our new normal.
Hope is still the strongest currency in these parts. But a devaluation of life can come if the world sells the people short. With the realities of modern times, forever no longer has the same currency it had a generation ago.
Rolling on the way through my journey, I got a triple OG sitting right beside me. This old man, he played four, he playing knick-knack on my door. Raises of white noise, light up the world. Here we go, and I follow the sun, 'cause it's bright on the other side of my window.
In Grenada, like in many places in the Caribbean, there are continuing concerns about rising temperatures and the increasing frequency of storms.
In growing up as a young girl on the Carriacou, the changes, I always tell them the major change started with Hurricane Janet, September. September is a very terrible month for Grenada with hurricanes. Price of progress is always very high. And to me, the whole environmental problem in the Caribbean and in particular in Grenada come with the price of progress.
The country was devastated, almost complete devastation. In some villages, first of all, every village in Dominica, every street, every cranny, every person in Dominica was impacted by the hurricane.
I know myself from since this is why growing up, coming here, twice to come and enjoy yourself at the beach, and bathe and eat and drink and enjoy yourself and have fun. The river never is so much with the sea, but I know the water get rough. The climate got changing.
People here have created their own way of life, overcoming great challenges over the centuries. They are at one with nature, and nature is at one with them.
There are farmers who have irrigation systems. There are farmers who are close to rivers, but there are also farmers who depend solely on rainwater, our rainwater harvesting to grow their plants. And I can tell you over the last year or so, and a lot of farmers have not been able to reach their targets in terms of production.
They followed the sun and the moon and the stars to maintain their livelihoods. Their culture has evolved dependent on the environment, their lives intertwined with its well-being.
We have no choice as a region but to pursue climate-smart development. Building the region's resilience to climate change, natural hazards, and environmental changes is not only a necessary and urgent development imperative, but is also a fundamental requirement to ensure our basic survival as a people.
The problem with climate change is it's getting warmer faster in the temperate regions, and so earlier in the year, like February, March, when the birds are still here, they don't know they have to go home yet, but all the things that should be happening when they arrive are happening earlier. So their nesting sites are becoming available, their food sources, especially insects, are blooming. So by the time the birds get back to where they have to go, there's no food for them.
Follow the sun, I follow the sun.
Water fuels life here. Above as below, without adaptation, much is at stake. Maybe the lives here can be the hope and the light the world needs to make a change before it's too late.
These impacts are reversing economic growth, exacerbating poverty, and undermining the future prosperity of Caribbean countries.
This war was not started on their terms, but one through which they are determined to fight together.
But we can't do this alone. This is why we're calling for greater focus, support, and action from the international community to get us ahead of this climate crisis.
Grenada's National Sustainable Development Plan 2035 seeks to address climate adaptation and vulnerability for sustainable development.
Being on the front line in the war against climate change, Caribbean countries are pushed into action and are finding ways to overcome the challenges.
We're facing a hurricane, Hurricane Dorian, one that we've never seen in the history of Bahamas. I just want to say that as a physician, I've been trained to withstand many things, but never anything like this.
We preserve, we protect, and we promote. Adaptation done right safeguards our economies and builds a better future for us all. The choice is clear. Delay and pay, or plan and prosper.
Hope and resilience may be enough after all. Governments, communities, and businesses are working together in this changing reality to adapt and build a stronger Caribbean as the world's first climate-smart zone.
Investing in adaptation measures is not a cost, it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity to realign our lifestyles and our economies to respect that delicate balance that maintains life on Earth.
Accelerating adaptation would enable us to get ahead of the climate crisis and stay there.
In Grenada, they're embarking on a bold plan to build the first climate-smart city in the Caribbean. If carbon emissions are not capped, if the sea levels and temperatures continue to rise, if we do not act now, all hope will be lost.
The time for action is now. The choice is clear.
The choice is clear. Adapt our world.
With fresh investments in people and infrastructure, with development tied to the sustenance of the environment, with strengthening policies and greater awareness, we can accelerate adaptation and save our world. So join us as we adapt our world.
The choice is clear. Adapt our world.
Adapt!